The first nail Kevin Draper hammered into my deck was also the first nail in my marriage's coffin, though I wouldn't figure that out until 9 months later when Christine announced her pregnancy at our Labor Day barbecue. I'm Tom Waverly, 39 years old, and I make my living as an insurance adjuster. I spend my days documenting other people's disasters, measuring damage, calculating loss. You'd think that would make me good at spotting trouble in my own backyard. You'd be wrong. It started innocently enough. Christine had been nagging me about the deck for 2 years. Our house sits on a corner lot in Millbrook Heights, one of those suburban developments where every lawn looks like a golf course and every neighbor knows your business before you do. The previous owners had torn out the old deck, leaving behind a concrete pad that Christine called an eyesore, and I called perfectly functional. "Tom, we need something nice for entertaining," she'd say, flipping through home improvement magazines at breakfast. "Something with character." Character. That's what she wanted. What she got was Kevin Draper. Kevin lived 3 houses down with his wife Sandra. He was one of those guys who owned every tool known to mankind and wasn't shy about letting you know it. 41 years old, built like he still played high school football, with hands that looked like they could crush walnuts and a smile that made women forget they were married. "I could help you with that deck project," he offered one Saturday morning in May. I was mowing the front lawn when he wandered over, beer in hand, despite it being 10 in the morning. "I just finished my own. Got all the tools, know a guy who can get us lumber at cost." Christine appeared on the front porch like she'd been waiting for her cue. She was wearing that yellow sundress that made her look 10 years younger, the one she usually saved for special occasions. For a conversation about lumber, it seemed like overkill. "That's so generous of you, Kevin," she called out, walking toward us with that particular smile she used on salespeople and repair technicians. "Tom's been putting this off forever." I should have said no. Should have told Kevin I could handle my own home improvement projects. Instead, I found myself nodding, shaking his hand, agreeing to let him help out with my deck. The construction started the following weekend. Kevin showed up Saturday morning with a truck full of tools and enough enthusiasm to power a small city. He'd already drawn up plans, measured the space, even ordered the materials. I felt like a guest at my own project. "You've got a great setup here," Kevin said, surveying the backyard while Christine brought him coffee in her good china. "This deck's going to be perfect for entertaining. Christine was telling me about the barbecues you guys throw." When had Christine been telling him about our barbecues? We hadn't thrown a barbecue in 3 years. The work progressed faster than I expected. Kevin had a way of making everything look easy. He'd show up early, stay late, and somehow always manage to time his breaks with Christine's arrivals home from her job at the marketing firm downtown. I'd come out to find them huddled over the plans, their heads close together, discussing design elements and aesthetic choices. "He really knows what he's doing," Christine would tell me over dinner. "We're lucky to have such a helpful neighbor." Lucky. Right. By July, the deck was taking shape. Kevin had convinced us to expand the original design, adding built-in planters and a pergola that would really make the space pop. The project that was supposed to take 3 weekends had stretched into 2 months, but I had to admit the results were impressive. That's when I started noticing the little things. The way Christine always seemed to have fresh makeup when Kevin was coming over, how she'd changed from her work clothes into something more flattering before heading outside to check on the progress. The fact that she'd started buying the expensive beer Kevin preferred, claiming she wanted to show appreciation for his hard work. "You're being paranoid," I told myself. Kevin was married. Christine was my wife of 12 years. People helped each other out in the suburbs. That's what neighbors did. But insurance adjusters are trained to notice details, and the details were adding up. Like the way Kevin's truck always seemed to be parked on our street, even when he wasn't working on the deck. Or how Christine had suddenly developed an interest in home improvement shows, watching them with the kind of attention she usually reserved for her romance novels. Or the fact that my wife, who normally complained about getting sawdust on her clothes, Didn't seem to mind when Kevin's work left traces of wood shavings on the patio furniture. The deck was finished in August. Kevin and I stood back to admire our work, cold beers in hand, while Christine fussed over the new planters. It was beautiful, I had to admit. Professional quality, the kind of deck that would add real value to the house. "We should have a party," Christine announced. "A deck-warming party. Invite the whole neighborhood." Kevin grinned. "That's a great idea. Sandra would love that." Sandra, Kevin's wife. I realized I hadn't seen much of her during the construction. She worked as a nurse at the county hospital, pulling long shifts, leaving Kevin with plenty of free time to play handyman. We threw the party on Labor Day weekend. The whole neighborhood showed up, along with Christine's co-workers and a few of my buddies from the office. Everyone admired the deck, complimented the craftsmanship, asked Kevin about his techniques. He basked in the attention like a celebrity, Christine beaming beside him as if she'd built the thing herself. That's when she made the announcement. "Tom and I have some news," Christine said, tapping her wine glass with a fork to get everyone's attention. The conversation died down, faces turning toward us with expectant smiles. "We're going to have a baby." The cheers and congratulations washed over me like a wave, but I felt like I was drowning. A baby. Christine was pregnant. The timeline crashed through my mind like a freight train. We hadn't been intimate in months. Not since spring, when she'd started complaining about headaches and stress from work. She'd been distant, distracted, claiming she was too tired for physical affection. I'd chalked it up to a rough patch, something couples went through after 12 years of marriage. But if she was far enough along to announce it publicly, the conception would have happened right around the time Kevin started coming around every day. Right around the time she started wearing makeup to check on deck construction progress. I smiled and accepted congratulations and played the part of the excited father-to-be, but inside, my adjuster's mind was already calculating the damage. The morning after the party, I woke up to an empty bed and the sound of Christine throwing up in the bathroom. Morning sickness, I thought. Proof positive that this pregnancy was real and not some elaborate misunderstanding. I found her in the kitchen 20 minutes later, looking pale but determined, making coffee with shaking hands. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About 6 weeks," she said without looking at me. I wanted to be sure before I said anything. 6 weeks. That put conception sometime in July, right in the middle of the deck project, right when Kevin was spending more time at our house than his own. "We should make a doctor's appointment," I said. "Get everything checked out." "Already did. Next Tuesday at 10. Of course she had. Christine was nothing if not efficient. She'd probably already started researching cribs and car seats, maybe even picked out names. She'd always been a planner, thinking 3 steps ahead of everyone else. It's what made her good at her marketing job, and apparently at covering her tracks. I went to work that morning, with my head spinning. Sitting in my cubicle at Midwest Insurance, I tried to focus on a claim involving storm damage to a warehouse, but my mind kept drifting back to the timeline. July conception, no intimacy since April. Kevin working on the deck every day, staying late, always finding excuses to hang around. "You look like someone ran over your dog," said Marty Kowalski, dropping into the chair next to my desk. Marty was my closest friend at the office, a former cop who'd switched to insurance investigation after 20 years on the force. He had the kind of cynical worldview that came from seeing too much human nature in action. "Christine's pregnant," I said. "Congratulations, man. That's great news." "Is it?" Something in my tone made Marty lean closer. "What's going on, Tom?" I told him about the timeline, about Kevin, about the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Marty listened without interrupting, his cop instincts kicking in. "Could be nothing," he said when I finished. "Stress can mess with a woman's cycle. Maybe the conception was earlier than you think." "Maybe, but you don't think so." "I don't know what to think." Marty was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I don't know that either. The doctor's appointment was a nightmare of cheerful efficiency. Dr. Martinez was thrilled to see us, congratulating Christine on her perfect health and me on becoming a father. She did an ultrasound, pointing out features on the grainy screen that looked like abstract art to me. Based on the measurements, I'd say you're about 10 weeks along, Dr. Martinez said. That puts conception around the middle of July, right on schedule for a spring baby. 10 weeks. July. The numbers hammered in my skull like Kevin's construction work. Christine squeezed my hand during the examination, her face glowing with happiness that looked absolutely genuine. Either she was innocent and I was losing my mind, or she was a better actress than I'd given her credit for. That evening, I found myself standing on the new deck, looking across the yard toward Kevin's house. His truck was in the driveway, lights on in the kitchen window. A normal suburban scene, a normal neighbor living his normal life. Except nothing felt normal anymore. Christine joined me outside, wrapping her arms around my waist from behind. Penny, for your thoughts? Just thinking about the baby, I said. It's a big change. The best kind of change. She rested her chin on my shoulder. Kevin did such beautiful work on this deck. It'll be perfect for the baby. We can set up a playpen out here in the summer, let the little one enjoy the fresh air. Kevin. Even now, she was thinking about Kevin. Maybe we should do something nice for him, Christine continued. To thank him for all his help. Dinner, maybe. Or we could get him something for his workshop. Sure, I said, though every instinct I had was screaming warnings. Whatever you think is best. Over the next few weeks, I started paying attention in ways I never had before. I noticed that Christine's phone was always face down on the counter, that she'd started taking calls in the other room, claiming they were work-related, that she'd developed a sudden interest in home improvement stores, volunteering to pick up supplies whenever I mentioned needing something. I noticed that Kevin's truck appeared on our street at odd times. Early morning when I'd already left for work. Late afternoon before I got home. Always with a reasonable explanation when I asked Christine about it. He was returning the level he borrowed, she'd say. Or, he wanted to check on how the deck stain was holding up. Reasonable explanations, neighborly behavior, nothing you could point to and call suspicious, unless you were looking for suspicion. I started looking. I drove past Kevin's house on my way to work, noting when his truck was there and when it wasn't. I paid attention to Christine's schedule, the days she claimed to be working late or meeting friends for lunch. I watched the way she dressed on Kevin's drop-by days, always a little more put together than usual. The evidence was circumstantial, the kind that would never hold up in court. But insurance fraud investigations had taught me that patterns mattered, that small inconsistencies could reveal big truths. The pattern was becoming clear. 3 weeks after the pregnancy announcement, I was working late when I decided to drive home early and surprise Christine with dinner from her favorite restaurant. It was a Thursday evening, one of those perfect autumn nights when the air smells like leaves and possibility. Kevin's truck was parked 2 blocks from our house. I drove past our driveway and circled around, parking where I could see the backyard. The deck lights were on, and I could make out 2 figures standing close together near the railing. Very close. Closer than neighbors should stand. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching my wife and my neighbor have what looked like an intimate conversation on the deck Kevin had built. They weren't touching, but their body language spoke volumes. The way Christine tilted her head when she laughed, the way Kevin leaned in when he spoke, the way they both jumped apart when a car door slammed somewhere in the neighborhood. When I finally went inside, Christine was in the kitchen, humming while she prepared dinner. She looked surprised to see me. "You're home early," she said, kissing my cheek. "Good day at work?" "Great day," I said. "How was yours?" "Oh, you know, same old routine. Nothing exciting." Nothing exciting. Right. That night, lying in bed while Christine slept beside me, I made a decision. I was going to find out the truth, whatever it took. I was going to get proof. And then, I was going to decide what to do about it. Getting proof was easier than I expected. Christine was careless with technology, always using the same passwords and never logging out. Her laptop was usually left open on the kitchen counter. After 3 days, I found everything. The messages were hidden in an app disguised as a calculator. She'd downloaded it 2 months earlier, right when Kevin started spending more time at our house. The conversation made my stomach drop. They talked about meeting when I was gone, mocked my inattentiveness, complained about our marriage. Then came the message from 3 weeks earlier. I'm late. What if I'm pregnant? Kevin suggested it could be mine. Christine said we hadn't been together in months. They were already planning the lie. I screenshotted everything, backed it up, erased the traces, and sat on the deck Kevin had built, trying to decide what to do. Divorce would have been the smart choice. I had proof. I could walk away and start over. But it didn't feel like enough. Everyone at the Labor Day party had congratulated me. Some of them probably knew. The looks, the smiles, the sudden silences. I'd been the last one to see the truth. I didn't want just a divorce. I wanted justice. The idea came slowly. Christine was planning a baby shower. Both families, friends, neighbors. The perfect audience. I needed proof that couldn't be questioned. A paternity test. DNA kits were easy to order. The baby's sample would be simple once it was born. Kevin's would be harder but not impossible. Hair, saliva, skin cells, there were ways. I ordered the kit and began planning the reveal. The baby shower was set for March. Around 30 people all gathered to celebrate. I imagined standing up, asking for attention, and telling the truth. The silence, the shock. Christine exposed, Kevin unmasked. The waiting was torture. Months passed. I played the role of the excited husband. Doctor visits, nursery shopping, polite smiles. All the while, I watched and documented everything. By winter, Christine was visibly pregnant, glowing as she accepted congratulations. Kevin kept his distance. His wife started giving Christine suspicious looks. Good. In January, Christine finalized the baby shower plans. She wanted it perfect. She even suggested showing off the deck Kevin built. Whatever you want, I said. Our day, she corrected. Right. Our celebration. I couldn't wait. March arrived with unseasonably warm weather, the kind of early spring that makes people optimistic about longer days and new beginnings. Christine was due any day, her belly so large she could barely see her feet. She moved carefully around the house, one hand always resting on her lower back, the other cradling the bump that contained Kevin Draper's child. The baby shower was scheduled for March 15th, 2 weeks before the due date. Christine had sent invitations to everyone we knew, plus a few people I was pretty sure she'd invited just to maximize the audience. The guest list included both our families, half the neighborhood, her entire office, and several friends from high school she hadn't spoken to in years. 37 people, all gathered to celebrate a lie. I'd refined my plan over the winter months, working out every detail. The DNA testing kit was hidden in my office desk, ready to go. I'd practiced my speech in the car during lunch breaks, perfecting the tone and timing. Calm but firm, disappointed but not angry. The voice of a man who'd discovered an unfortunate truth and felt obligated to share it. The hardest part had been obtaining Kevin's genetic material, but even that turned out easier than expected. In February, he sliced his hand on a saw blade while helping Bob Martinez repair a fence. Christine insisted on bringing bandages and antiseptic, playing the role of the concerned neighbor. I volunteered to dispose of the used gauze afterward. Instead, I'd bagged it and stored it in my office freezer, next to the leftover pizza and energy drinks. 1 week before the shower, Christine went into labor. It happened on a Tuesday morning while I was at work. She called me, breathing heavily, saying the contractions were 5 minutes apart and we needed to get to the hospital. I drove home in record time, found her waiting by the door with her hospital bag and a look of nervous excitement. "This is it," she said as I helped her into the car. "We're going to meet our baby." Our baby. The lie was so automatic now, I wondered if she'd started believing it herself. Labor took 14 hours. I sat beside Christine's bed, holding her hand through contractions, timing the intervals, playing the supportive husband role while nurses bustled around us. Kevin didn't visit, which was probably smart. Sandra worked at this hospital, and showing up to support another man's wife during childbirth would have raised questions he wasn't ready to answer. The baby arrived at 3:17 a.m. on Wednesday morning. A girl, 7 pounds and 4 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and Kevin Draper's nose. "She's beautiful," Christine whispered, tears streaming down her face as the nurse placed the baby on her chest. "Tom, look at her. She's perfect." I looked. The baby was beautiful, with tiny fingers and toes and that wrinkled newborn face that could belong to anyone. But I could see Kevin in the shape of her eyes, the set of her mouth. Or maybe I was looking for it. "What should we call her?" Christine asked. We'd discussed names for months without reaching a decision. Now, holding this child who might or might not be mine, the choice seemed important in ways I couldn't explain. "Emma," I said. "Let's call her Emma." Christine smiled. "Emma Waverly. I love it." Emma Waverly, for now, anyway. The next few days passed in a blur of visitors and congratulations. Both our families descended on the hospital, cooing over Emma and praising Christine's strength. Flowers arrived from her office, cards from neighbors, a massive teddy bear from Kevin and Sandra that made Christine's eyes light up in ways that told me everything I needed to know. I played my part perfectly. The proud new father, exhausted but happy, grateful for everyone's support. I took pictures, accepted cigars, listened to parenting advice from relatives who thought they were helping. And when no one was looking, I collected DNA samples. A cotton swab brushed against Emma's cheek during a diaper change. Saliva from her pacifier when Christine wasn't watching. Skin cells from the blanket she'd been sleeping on. I was careful, subtle, collecting evidence the same way I documented insurance fraud. The samples went to the lab on Friday. Results would take 5 to 7 business days, which meant I'd have answers by the following Wednesday. 2 days before the baby shower. Perfect timing. We brought Emma home on Sunday to a house decorated with balloons and welcome signs. The neighbors had organized a surprise celebration, gathering on our front lawn with cameras and congratulations. Kevin and Sandra were there, standing at the back of the crowd, Sandra's smile tight and Kevin's eyes focused on the bundle in Christine's arms. "She's gorgeous," Kevin said when it was his turn to offer congratulations. "Congratulations, Tom. You must be so proud." "I am," I said, shaking his hand and looking him directly in the eyes. "She's everything I hoped for." The DNA results arrived by email on Tuesday afternoon while I was at work. I opened the message with steady hands, though my heart was pounding hard enough to power a jackhammer. The test was conclusive. Emma Waverly was not my biological daughter. I read the report 3 times, checking the numbers and percentages, making sure I understood the science. 0 probability of paternity. No chance of error. The child I'd been caring for, the baby everyone thought was mine, belonged to someone else. Kevin's sample hadn't been included in this test, but it didn't matter. I knew who the father was. I'd known for months. Now I had proof. I printed 2 copies of the report, sealed one in an envelope, and put the other in my briefcase. Then I called Christine to confirm the shower details. "Everything's ready," she said, and I could hear Emma crying in the background. "The caterer will be here at noon. Guests start arriving at 1. It's going to be wonderful." "I'm sure it will be," I said. Very memorable. That was an understatement. Saturday morning dawned clear and warm, the kind of perfect spring day that makes people believe in fresh starts and happy endings. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat on Kevin's deck watching the neighborhood come to life. A few houses down, I could see Sandra Draper in her kitchen window, probably getting ready for the baby shower she had no idea would change everything. Christine was already up, feeding Emma and fussing over last-minute details. She'd transformed our living room into something out of a magazine, with pink and white decorations, elegant place settings, and enough flowers to stock a funeral home. Everything had to be perfect, she said. This was a once-in-a-lifetime celebration. She had no idea how right she was. "The caterer should be here any minute," Christine said, bouncing Emma gently while the baby fussed. "Can you help me move the coffee table? I want more space for people to mingle." I moved furniture and hung streamers, playing the helpful husband role one last time. The DNA report was in my jacket pocket, folded and ready. I'd rehearsed my speech so many times I could deliver it in my sleep. The caterer arrived at noon, followed by Christine's sister Jennifer, who'd flown in from Denver the night before. Jennifer was 2 years older than Christine, with the same blonde hair and sharp features, but without Christine's talent for deception. She'd always been straightforward to the point of rudeness, which made her reaction to my announcement something I was particularly looking forward to. "Tom," Jennifer hugged me enthusiastically. "Congratulations, I can't believe you're finally a father." Christine was starting to think it would never happen. Interesting phrasing. "Life is full of surprises," I said. Guests started arriving at 1 o'clock. My parents drove down from Milwaukee, beaming with grandparent pride. Christine's parents came from the other side of town, her mother carrying enough baby gifts to stock a nursery. Neighbors appeared with casseroles and congratulations. Co-workers from Christine's office brought flowers and advice. Kevin and Sandra arrived at 1:30, Sandra carrying a beautifully wrapped gift and wearing a smile that looked like it had been painted on. Kevin hung back, shaking hands and making small talk, but I caught him stealing glances at Emma whenever Christine wasn't looking. By 2 o'clock, 37 people were crammed into our living room, balancing plates of catered food and glasses of champagne, cooing over Emma and sharing parenting stories. The conversation was loud and cheerful, full of laughter and the kind of optimism that comes with new babies in spring weather. Christine glowed at the center of attention, accepting compliments and gifts with gracious smiles. She looked beautiful and happy, the picture of new motherhood. Several people commented on how natural she looked with a baby, how motherhood suited her, if they only knew. At 2:30, I stood up and tapped my champagne glass with a fork. The conversation gradually died down as people turned to face me, expecting the traditional thank you speech from the grateful father. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the suddenly quiet room. "Christine and I are overwhelmed by your support and generosity. Having a baby is a life-changing experience, and it means everything to have family and friends to share it with." Nods and smiles around the room. Christine beamed at me from her chair, Emma sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Before we continue with the celebration," I said, "there's something important I need to share with all of you. Something I discovered this week that changes everything." The smiles were starting to fade. Christine's expression shifted from happiness to confusion to the first hint of alarm. As many of you know, I work in insurance investigation. I'm trained to notice details, to ask questions when things don't add up. I paused, letting the silence stretch. A few months ago, I started noticing that some details about this pregnancy didn't quite make sense. Christine's face had gone pale. Across the room, Kevin was staring at me with the expression of a man watching a train wreck in slow motion. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I investigated. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the DNA report. I ordered a paternity test. The silence in the room was absolute. 37 people holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "The results arrived this week," I continued, unfolding the paper. According to this laboratory analysis, there is zero probability that I am Emma's biological father. The explosion was immediate. Gasps, shocked exclamations, the sound of someone dropping a plate. Christine's sister, Jennifer, stood up so fast she knocked over her chair. "That's impossible," Christine said, her voice barely a whisper. "Tom, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you've been having an affair," I said calmly. "I'm talking about the text messages I found on your phone. I'm talking about all those afternoons when Kevin was supposedly helping with the deck, but was actually helping himself to my wife." All eyes turned to Kevin, who looked like he was about to be sick. Sandra was staring at him with an expression that could have melted steel. "This is crazy," Kevin stammered. "Tom, I don't know what you think you found, but I found proof." I cut him off. "DNA evidence that Emma isn't mine, plus months of documentation showing your affair with my wife, text messages, photographs, witness statements. Everything I need to prove that you two have been lying to everyone in this room." Christine started crying, clutching Emma against her chest. "Tom, please, not like this, not in front of everyone." "Not like this?" I felt the anger I'd been controlling for months finally break through. "You announced this pregnancy in front of everyone. You planned this whole celebration to show off your lie. You made me stand here and accept congratulations for fathering another man's child. So yes, Christine, exactly like this." Jennifer had recovered from her initial shock and was advancing on her sister like an avenging angel. "Christine Marie, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't cheat on your husband with the neighbor." Christine couldn't answer. She was sobbing too hard to speak. My mother stood up, her face white with shock and embarrassment. "Thomas, I think we should discuss this privately." "No," I said firmly. "No more privacy, no more secrets. Everyone here deserves to know the truth about what they're celebrating." Sandra Draper had been silent through the entire exchange, but now she stepped forward, her nurse's training helping her stay calm in crisis situations. "Kevin," she said quietly, "is it true?" Kevin looked around the room at 37 faces staring at him, waiting for an answer. His shoulders sagged in defeat. "Sandy, Is it true?" she repeated. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes, it's true." The second explosion was even louder than the first. Sandra slapped Kevin so hard the sound echoed through the room. Christine's mother started crying. Jennifer began yelling at Christine in language that would have made a sailor blush. In the midst of the chaos, I stood perfectly still, watching the destruction of Christine's perfect celebration. This was what I'd wanted. This was justice. But as I looked around the room at the shocked faces of family and friends, at Christine sobbing over a baby who was innocent in all of this, at Kevin trying to explain the unexplainable to his furious wife, I realized something important. Revenge tasted exactly like I thought it would. It tasted like victory. The baby shower ended in spectacular fashion. Half the guests fled immediately, grabbing their coats and muttering awkward excuses. The other half stayed to watch the drama unfold, probably figuring they'd never see anything this entertaining again. Jennifer continued screaming at Christine until my mother intervened, suggesting they take the conversation to another room. Christine's parents sat in stunned silence, looking like they'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. My father cornered me near the kitchen, demanding to know why I'd chosen to handle things this way. "Because they deserved it," I told him. "Because I was tired of being the fool everyone felt sorry for behind my back." Kevin and Sandra's marriage imploded in real time. She threw her wedding ring at him, called him names that made Jennifer's language sound tame, and stormed out of the house with a promise to file divorce papers Monday morning. Kevin followed her, still trying to explain, still making excuses. I watched them leave and felt absolutely nothing. By 5 o'clock, the house was empty except for Christine, Emma, and me. Christine sat in the living room surrounded by unopened baby gifts and the ruins of her perfect celebration, tears streaming down her face while Emma slept peacefully in her arms. "Are you happy now?" she asked without looking at me. "Was this worth it?" "Yes," I said, "it was. What happens now?" "Now you pack your things and leave. Tonight." She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "Tom, please. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work things out?" "Work what out, Christine? The affair, the lies? The fact that you tried to pass off another man's child as mine? I made a mistake. You made a choice. Multiple choices over months. You chose to cheat. You chose to lie. You chose to humiliate me in front of everyone we know. Now I'm making a choice." She was quiet for a long time, looking down at Emma. "What about her? She's innocent in all this." "You're right. She is innocent, which is why I'm not going to punish her for your mistakes." I sat down across from Christine, suddenly feeling exhausted. "I'll make sure she's taken care of. Financially, I mean. But she's not my daughter, Christine. We both know that now." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore." She left that night, packing 2 suitcases and a diaper bag while I sat on the deck Kevin had built, drinking beer and watching the sunset. I could hear her moving around inside, opening drawers and closets, probably trying to figure out how to fit 12 years of marriage into a few pieces of luggage. Kevin's house was dark. Sandra's car wasn't in the driveway. Word traveled fast in suburban neighborhoods, and by tomorrow morning, everyone in Millbrook Heights would know the story. The deck builder who built more than patios, the wife who couldn't keep her wedding vows, the husband who got his revenge at a baby shower. I'd be famous, in a small-town scandal kind of way. Christine appeared on the deck around 9 o'clock, Emma in her car seat, suitcases by the door. "I'm staying at Jennifer's tonight," she said. "After that, I don't know." "You'll figure it out. You're good at making plans." She started to say something else, then stopped. What was there to say? Sorry seemed inadequate. Explanations were pointless. Promises would be meaningless. "For what it's worth," she said finally, "I never meant for it to happen this way." "But you meant for it to happen." "Yes, I meant for it to happen." At least she was being honest now. I watched her load the car, strap Emma into the back seat, and drive away from the house we'd shared for 8 years. Her taillights disappeared around the corner, and just like that, my marriage was over. I sat on the deck until midnight, finishing my beer and thinking about what came next. Divorce proceedings would start Monday. The house would probably have to be sold, assets divided, lawyers paid. There would be paperwork and court dates and awkward encounters at the grocery store. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt at peace. The truth was out. The lies were finished. Everyone knew exactly who Christine and Kevin really were and exactly what they'd done. Justice had been served at a baby shower, with 37 witnesses and a DNA report for evidence. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day changing locks, canceling joint credit cards, and making appointments with divorce lawyers. The story had already spread through the neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson brought me a casserole and lingering questions about how I was holding up. Bob Martinez offered to help with yard work and not-so-subtle hints about what a stand-up guy I was for handling things the way I did. The local gossip network was working overtime, turning my personal disaster into entertainment for the entire subdivision. I didn't mind. Let them talk. Let them speculate. Let them remember this story for years to come, every time they saw a happy couple or attended a baby shower or watched neighbors helping each other with home improvement projects. Let them remember that sometimes the quiet guy who processes insurance claims and builds decks with helpful neighbors is paying attention to more than you think. Let them remember that revenge, served properly, is a dish best enjoyed in public. Kevin moved out of Sandra's house the following weekend. I watched from my kitchen window as he loaded his truck with tools and clothes, looking like a man who'd lost everything that mattered. Sandra stood in the doorway, arms crossed, making sure he didn't take anything that wasn't his. He never looked toward my house. Smart man. Christine filed for divorce 2 weeks later, citing irreconcilable differences. I filed a counter-petition citing adultery, with DNA evidence and documentation attached. My lawyer said it was one of the most thoroughly documented infidelity cases he'd ever seen. "You should have been a private investigator," he told me. "You've got a real talent for this kind of work." Maybe I did. Maybe there was something to be said for a career change, for using my skills to help other people uncover the truth about their own lives. But that was a decision for another day. For now, I was content to sit on Kevin's deck, drinking beer and watching my neighbors live their complicated lives, secure in the knowledge that everyone in Millbrook Heights knew exactly what happened when you tried to fool Tom Waverly. The deck was beautiful, I had to admit. Professional quality work that would last for decades. A permanent reminder of the summer when my neighbor built more than a patio with my wife, and I built the perfect revenge. Every nail Kevin had hammered, every board he'd measured and cut, every hour he'd spent in my backyard while planning his betrayal, it had all led to this moment. His craftsmanship had given me the perfect stage for exposing his lies. The irony was beautiful as the deck itself.